Hi, everyone. It's Peter Schiff. It's Thursday, November 19th, 2009. Well, again, just when you thought the Senate couldn't do anything stupider, they come up with their version of this health care reform bill. This just shows you why I need to go to the U.S. Senate, because no one there has a brain. I mean, this is obviously one of the worst pieces of legislation I've seen, and it shows that the senators that are writing this regulation have absolutely no comprehension of insurance, what it is, how it works. They know nothing of basic economics, yet they're writing the rules that the rest of us are going to have to live by. First of all, in this new Senate version of the health care reform bill, the new taxes, and there are many new taxes in this bill, start basically immediately. New payroll taxes, taxes on insurance companies, taxes on cosmetic surgery. All these taxes start right away. But the theoretical benefits, the health care, that doesn't start for another 5 years or so, 2014. So right off the bat, this is really just a tax hike in disguise. The government gets all this revenue to do what it wants with under the guise of giving us some health care. But of course, it's not giving us anything. It's just giving us higher taxes over the next 4 or 5 years. Now, I think the reason that they're waiting so long for the plan to start is because that way it'll take longer for people to realize what a disaster it is. And of course, by then, the 2012 elections will already be over. And maybe Barack Obama could get elected to a second term before we realize how much damage his health care plan actually caused. But let's take a look at the Senate plan, and let me explain to you why this is a disaster. And if anything, what it really is, it's a recipe for socialized health care. And maybe I'm underestimating the senators. Maybe they're just smarter than I give them credit. Maybe they understand that this bill is going to destroy the private insurance market and end up being socialized medicine, which is what they want all along. Basically, the way health insurance works is that insurance companies collect premiums from a lot of healthy people, and the premiums are relatively low, and I say relatively in a loose sense, but they collect all these lower premiums from the healthy people so that if some of them happen to get sick, they can make much larger payments to a smaller pool of people. So they collect a lot of money and then they pay some out, and that's how they stay in business. Well, this plan basically destroys the whole concept of insurance. What it does is it makes it illegal for insurance companies to discriminate based on a pre-existing condition. They also make it illegal for insurance companies to charge people that have a pre-existing condition more money than people who don't. So the bottom line is this plan eliminates the need for insurance. I mean, why buy insurance? I mean, if you don't get sick, you don't need it. If you do get sick, well, then buy it after you're already sick. I mean, imagine if fire insurance were sold that way. Imagine if you can buy fire insurance after your house already burned down, and you can buy the insurance for the same price as the people whose houses aren't on fire. Well, why would you pay fire insurance year after year? After all, it might not burn down. Why waste that money? Why just wait till it burns to the ground and then pay a small premium, maybe pay a couple $1,000s, and collect hundreds of thousands in benefits? That's what everybody would do. And that's exactly what they're going to do if the Senate plan actually becomes law. Now, the senators might tell you, well, we've got penalties in there. We're forcing people to buy insurance so this doesn't happen. Well, the penalties are tiny. I'll take those penalties any day over having to pay insurance. The penalty in the first year, which I think is 2014, I think it starts out at $95 per person. So you can just not buy any health insurance and pay a $95 a year penalty to the government. And then, of course, you can wait until you get sick and then buy your insurance. That penalty goes up to something like $750 per year, which is still much, much cheaper than what insurance costs. Right? I mean, I've been paying insurance for years. I never use any of it. I mean, I buy it just in case I really get sick. But according to the government plan, I'm wasting my money. I'll just buy insurance if I get sick. In the meantime, I'll just pay the penalty. Now, of course, this is going to destroy the insurance business because now the insurance companies aren't going to be collecting premiums from the healthy people. So how are they going to pay the claims to the sick people? They can't. Maybe initially they'll start jacking up their premiums. But of course, more and more people will drop out once they see these higher premiums. So this plan is going to destroy the health insurance industry. Basically, the healthcare companies will go out of business before it's enacted because they couldn't withstand the huge losses that they would be forced to endure by basically taking in no premiums and simply making payments to sick people who haven't paid in advance. Now, of course, there's a government provider, but nobody's going to even join the government provider because the insurance provided by the government is still more expensive than the penalty for getting no insurance, which is what everybody is going to do. And then, of course, as people start getting sick and looking to buy government insurance once they're sick, because they won't be able to buy private insurance because these companies will be out of business. When they go to buy public insurance, where's the government-run insurance company going to get the money to make the payments? Because after all, it's not collecting premiums from anybody. Nobody's paying in. So it's going to have to get the money from the taxpayer. And what this really is, what the Senate plan really is socialized medicine. What it means is anybody who gets sick, the government's going to have to take care of them. The government's going to have to pay all the bills because there are no insurance companies. The private insurance companies are going to go out of business. The government-run insurance provider isn't going to collect any revenues because no one's going to pay. This whole thing is absolutely ridiculous, and it shows they haven't got a clue. And part of the other problem is a lot of the taxes to pay for this program are on the insurance companies. Insurance companies that won't even be in business. They're talking about taxing these Cadillac plans. No one's going to buy these Cadillac plans. There's going to be no reason to have them because you don't need to buy insurance. You just wait till you get sick and the government's going to take care of you. This is a huge disaster waiting to happen. It is the camel's nose under the tent to complete socialized medicine because if they enact this plan, the whole thing is going to break down. Now, fortunately, maybe somebody is going to say something about this from the insurance industry and the senators are going to realize that this plan is pure fantasy. But the fact that somebody in the Senate, that these guys can even work and put out this kind of a bill, shows there's no one in there that has a brain. And of course, as far as companies are concerned, companies are going to drop their health care. I mean, if this thing were to go through, of course, I would cancel the health insurance for all my employees. Why bother? Just let them wait till they get sick and then get the procedures paid for by the government. There is a penalty for the employer who does this, but the penalty is small compared to the cost of providing insurance that nobody needs. And of course, you only have to pay the penalty if your employees buy government insurance, which they won't even do unless they get sick. And of course, they also have another plan that shows you the Senate. There's a penalty provision in there for companies where if you have fewer than 50 employees, you don't have to provide insurance and there's no penalty. But the minute you have 51 employees, you have to provide insurance to all your employees or you have to pay $750 per year per person penalty, which for a company with 51 employees is something like $40,000 penalty. What does that mean? That means if you're a small businessman and you've got 50 employees, you're not going to hire that 51st employee. You're going to do whatever you can to avoid hiring that person. And in fact, if you already have 51 employees, somebody's going to get fired because otherwise, you got to pay this big penalty. I mean, the whole thing is absurd. And it starts with the government's lack of understanding of exactly what insurance is and why we have health insurance. These guys are completely clueless. The same guys that screwed up the housing market, that screwed up the banking industry, are going to screw up the healthcare industry. They're going to completely destroy it with this kind of madness. Now, the House version is not quite as bad. Now, it has higher taxes in the Senate plan, I think, which I don't like. But the penalties for people who don't buy insurance are much higher. So the House plan won't be as big a disaster right away, but ultimately it will be the same result. Ultimately, more and more healthy people will opt out of insurance, driving up the costs for the people who stay with the providers, ultimately driving the insurance companies out of business. The only way they'll be able to stay in business is with massive government subsidies. And the whole thing doesn't work. There are simple solutions to our healthcare problems, which are all the result of government policy, governments and politicians that are so inept that they gave us this monstrosity out of the Senate. But all of these solutions involve less government, they involve market forces, which for whatever reason, our politicians are refusing to deal with that reality. They want to pretend that there's a government fix. There is no government fix. There's only a much bigger government disaster. And I'm sure if they actually implement this thing and the whole insurance industry falls apart the way I know that it will, they'll find a way to blame that on the free market, to blame that on capitalism, and act like nobody could have possibly predicted this. When, of course, what is going to happen is a 100% certainty if they enact this plan. Anyway, that's it for today. Take care, everybody.